So now we're going to start talking about the slope of a line. This is exciting because here we're going to start applying algebra to geometry, and specifically to linear equations. And in this case, we're going to start talking about the slope of a line. Now, before we look at this definition of this picture, I want to tell you intuitively what I want you to think about the slope of a line. The slope of a line is a kind of way of measuring how much the line is inclined. Right? So if in everyday language, we might say, well, this is a very gentle slope, this is more steep, and this is super steep, right? So the slope is a way of mathematically measuring how steep a line is. Now, with that said, we're now going to apply math to the problem. And so, in other words, we're going to try and apply a number to capture this idea. And that number is the slope. And here, this is how we're going to calculate the slope, and this is how we're going to define it for our purposes. If x1 and y1 and x2, y2 are 2 points on a line, then that line slope, denoted m, is given by m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And sometimes this is also referred to as your rise over your run. And I'll explain that in a moment. Now, let's look at this figure over here. This figure shows this line with the point x1, y1 and the point x2, y2 here. Now, let's think about what the numerator of this fraction is, of this slope. The numerator is y2 minus y1. That is y2 minus y1. So what does that give us? That gives us this length here, right? And so that's why it's called the rise. And on the other hand, if we look at the denominator, the x2 minus the x1, well, what does that give us? That would give us this number minus this number, or in other words, this distance from here to here. And so what we see is that the slope compares how much the line goes up vertically to how much it goes horizontally. So now let's think about that for a moment. The slope compares how much the line rises to how much it goes horizontally. So imagine if we have a line that goes up twice as much as it goes horizontally. Then you can see that that line will be more steep than a line that just goes as high as it goes to the right. And similarly, if the line only goes half as high as it goes to the right, we can see that that's less steep. And so we can see that indeed this fraction, the slope, captures the idea of steepness. And there we go. And this is going to be our definition. And now we're going to do some examples. It's going to be so exciting. Ta-da!